This is the Live Well and Thrive podcast, hosted by Michael Torchia, health and wellness expert. It's time to shape up, America.
Hi, this is Mike Torchia, and welcome to Live Well and Thrive. I have a very special guest today, Don the Dragon Wilson. He's a very dear friend. He's the most incredible martial artist, champion kickboxer. He's been in over 30 movies. And he's a person that you could totally rely on, because when I was putting on these events, which are the Shape of America campaigns, every single time I would ask Don to come and give a demonstration or lecture for all these kids, for all these family members coming out for self-defense. He always showed up. Don, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You know, over the years, I've admired your success, your great career as a martial artist, as an actor. But you are such an inspiration to so many people around the world. How did it all start? Did you want to be a martial artist when you were a child, or how did it all begin with martial arts?
Well, I would say my motivations were I wanted to be accepted because I was growing up in Florida, which is considered the South, and not many Asians. In fact, I was the only Asian in my school. People said, you have a brother, but my brother doesn't look as Asian as me for some reason. Yeah, he's passed for Italian or Mexican, or he looks ethnic, but not exactly. I look Asian. And so I wanted to be accepted by the kids I was going to school with. They were all white. Because at that time they had segregation. They had black schools and white schools. And I went to the white schools. And they eventually desegregated. And I did have, in high school, a group of black people in the school and a group of white people. And I didn't fit in to either group. So I wanted to be accepted. So I knew that if I went to sports, I tell people, when you sink a 30-foot jump shot, they don't care what color you are. I could have been a green Martian, but the black guy said, Wilson, you're not white, you're on our side. So I became everybody's friend. So basically, I was the MVP of my high school football team and the MVP of the basketball team. I scored 40 points a game in basketball. And I have, as a defensive captain, I stopped the entire offensive unit. I got 4 tackles in a row. And that as a middle linebacker, and that's not the norm. I broke many norms. I scored touchdowns as a defensive player.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I excelled in sports because I wanted to be accepted. So, and I tell people, I give talks to young kids now. I said, you don't need to just start doing things right. You need to turn negatives into positive things. You can't just say avoid negative things and look at it as a detriment to your career. There's a video I just saw it and I posted it. Bill Superfoot Wallace, the world champion before me, became a great kicker with his left leg because his right knee got hurt. And then they call him Superfoot because his left leg got so good. It skyrocketed beyond everybody else. And people say, oh, Don, your right leg is a carbon copy of Bill Superfoot's left. And I said, no, it's not even close. Huh. And I just posted on my Facebook page. It's the only social media I do is Facebook. But he turned a negative into a positive. The negative was he had a bad right knee. The positive thing is when he spent his entire life perfecting his left leg, it was, light years ahead of anybody else's. There's nobody.
Yeah, I remember he was an incredible martial artist. My
Look,
God.
They call him Superfoot. But the thing is, I've been all over the world. I fought for 28 years. At the highest level, as a world champion, and there's nobody that is even close to the coordination of his left leg.
How old is he now?
He's 10 years older than me, so I can keep track of it. I'm 70, he's 80.
Wow.
And I think Chuck just had a birthday, Chuck Norris, and he's around 85, I think, 84.
How's Chuck doing, by the
that.
way? Is he still...
Great as far as I know. Yeah, he used to live in Tarzana. And if he hadn't done Walker, Texas Ranger, I live in Woodland Hills. We're next door neighbors. We would have really gotten together many times. He loves to train. He's a dedicated martial artist, not just an actor, martial arts, quote, actor. He's a true martial artist. And when I get compared to people, he's the one that is my mentor. Right. Jackie Chan, if he didn't do martial art movies, we wouldn't know his name. Jet Li, Jean-Claude Van Damme. If he didn't do movies, you never know his name.
That's true.
Yeah, but not me and Chuck Norris. We were famous before we did films. And we're the only 2 guys that were that way. Now, there's a woman, Cynthia Rothrock. She was famous as a female competitor before she did films. And then she did started her career in Hong Kong, but now she's in, her movies.
She's done a lot of movies with you, correct?
Well, we had the same agent. So we
okay.
did probably 4 or 5 movies together. I didn't even count, but it's at least a half a dozen
She's
movies.
an amazing martial artist, too.
Yeah. She was undefeated for 5 years in a competition, not fighting, but forms competition.
Right.
It's like being a gymnast. And you're doing a predetermined gymnastic exercise in front of judges, and they judge you. And to be undefeated for 5 years it's never been done before, and it probably will never be done since. Because what happens is the judges, after a while, after you've won every year, year after year, they just don't look at you the same. They start picking apart your mistakes, and the young one coming up, they want to give them the chance to walk away with the trophy.
Sure.
And but for Cynthia to last 5 years was...
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, why did you pick, out of all the different forms of martial art, kickboxing?
Well, kickboxing is not martial arts. It's a sport. I picked Goju because I didn't pick Goju. It was the only martial arts they had at the Coast Guard Academy. And I went in the Coast Guard Academy because at the time, 1972, they were still drafting people. And people, my friends, were going to Vietnam. And not that I'm against the military. I'm pro-military. If we get attacked, like 9/11, we need to do something.
Yeah.
But, to this day, there's never been... The Gulf of Tonkin incident that they got us in the war was a false flag. The Vietnamese never attacked us. They didn't have a Navy or an Air Force, so how could they attack America? They couldn't even get over here. They'd have to walk, I guess. But I didn't believe in the war, that particular war, so I went in the Coast Guard. And in the Coast Guard, the only martial arts they had was Goju. It was Japanese karate. And I studied that for a year, and then Nixon got us out of the war, and then I got out of the Coast Guard. Because if I'd stayed one more year, you couldn't get out. You'd have to serve as an officer in the Coast Guard if you graduate, if you stay more than 2 years. But I stayed 1 year. And my brother was teaching at the time Kung Fu. So people said, oh, so you decided Kung Fu was better than karate, so you left karate. I said, no. If I want to take Goju, I have to pay for it. If I take Kung Fu, I have to get it for free for my brother. But it turned out to be a good Kung Fu style. And if I give you even the short list of the coincidences in my life, it's people say I have to write a book. They said, in fact, there are producers who are talking to me about doing a docudrama about me, not just a documentary, but just have people play me at different times of my life, because I'm sitting in front of you. I'm an enigma to people, even myself. So many odd coincidences in my life, such as this one. Cynthia and I study the same Kung Fu style. Of all the Kung Fu styles, there's a bunch of them. This is a very small, tiny, obscure Kung Fu style, Pai Lam Kung Fu, but we both got our black belts in it. Then when I moved to L.A., I first moved to Beverly Hills because people said, that's where you got to live, Beverly Hills. Yeah. Now, I didn't buy a house there. I didn't have that kind of money. Kickboxers don't make as much as boxers. But I had an apartment there, and it was nice. So I'm walking down the street, and I hear a car honks at me. I turn around, it's Cynthia Rothrock. And I go, Cynthia, what are you doing here? She goes, I live on the street. We lived in the same street. Of all the places in L.A., we lived. Now, luckily, I didn't find this house, the house I live in now. My wife found it. After I moved in, the first week, I'm taking my kids to school, and I see Cynthia in the parking lot. I go, Cynthia, what are you doing here? She goes, oh, I live in Woodland Hills. And I said, well, where? And we live on the same street. So we have
Incredible.
Well, the coincidences of Bruce Lee are like this. Like, he's part Asian, like me, he's
right.
I'm more Asian than Bruce Lee, but he's not full-blooded, and I'm only half Asian. But we're mixed Asians. He's known as the Dragon. Actually, they call him the Little Dragon. I'm known as the Dragon. He's right-handed but fights southpaw. I'm right-handed but fight southpaw. My favorite technique was a side kick. He's famous for the side kick. He said it's the most powerful kick, and that's his favorite kick. When he wanted to start his own film company, he named it Concord, without an E at the end. Now, the company that starred me in Blood Fist was owned by a guy named Roger Corman. The name of that company was Concord. He named Roger Corman's company was named, but with an E.
Oh, okay.
And that's a pretty bizarre coincidence. But it's just, I was just recently, people tell me I got to play the lottery. You got to play the lottery. I'm walking down Times Square because HBO invites me to this party every year because I did 4 HBO world premieres back in the 90s. So they know me, and the executives that were small are now big guys. They run the company. And so I go to their party. I do everything they ask me to do, and I'm done. And, you know, I'm kind of like, I'm in a hurry to get back to my hotel room, which was like a block from the event. It's every year they have it. Urban Action Showcase, they call it. So I'm walking fast in Times Square, and this is at night. This is 9 o'clock at night or whatever, and Times Square is packed if you know New York. It's just nothing but people. And I go, did I pass my hotel? I wanted to get back to the hotel so fast. Yeah. Maybe I walked right past it because I didn't know where I was. And the first person that walks up to me is a young woman in her early 20s. And I say, excuse me, do you know where, I think it was what was the name of the hotel? Well, anyway, it doesn't matter in the story. But where this hotel is, she goes, are you Aubriana Wilson's father? And I said, yeah, Aubriana's my daughter. She goes, I'm Rosie, your best friend in high school. You used to drive me to school every day. And I go, but, you know, after like 4 or 5 years, high school kids change. I didn't recognize her.
Yeah, they grow up.
My daughter's best friend got her thing out, and it was like a walking MapQuest type thing. And she said, oh, no, you haven't hit your hotel yet. It's 1 more block this way. Now, what are the odds that I'm going to ask somebody in the middle of the night in Times Square, and it's the girl that I used to drive to school and take home from school with my daughter. It was her best friend in high school. And it was so bizarre. I took a picture of it and then I posted it on Facebook, and that's when everybody said, "You got to play the lottery. You got to play the lottery." And
you're in a line with the stars, the universe, or something.
Look, I was not supposed to be. Sean Penn, my best friend was Chris Penn. So Sean Penn tells me when I first moved out here, he says, "Don, you're gonna have a hard time out here in Hollywood, acting, getting a career." And I said, "Why?" Because I knew nothing about acting. He said, "They don't write roles for 6 foot tall Asians with Southern accents." But here's the thing. They do now. At one time in my career, because, you know, Chris Penn is my best friend, rest in peace. I was his lead pallbearer. He said, think of this business as a roller coaster ride. You'll go up and down. You'll turn right. You'll turn left. You don't know where you're going, because when he first started, his first film, it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It was Rumblefish, I think, was the first one.
Oh my God, yeah.
But so he starts off at A-list, you know, and he's working with all those guys. Nicolas Cage, Tom Cruise was in that, I believe. Yeah. I mean,
I remember Chris was in a movie called One Tough Cop. It was Bo Dietl's story.
Oh, I never saw that. I never saw that. I'm ashamed to say my best friend's movie. I didn't see it.
And we got along great. We were hitting the strip clubs every night.
Oh, no. Yes, listen, depending on what time of the day and night you meet him, he's going to be a jerk or the nicest guy and the most friendly guy you ever meet.
So
he's one or the other.
The first day's shooting, it was with Stephen Baldwin, it was Chris Penn, and Stephen played Bo Dietl, the famous detective, One Tough Cop, it was called. So we go to the club, and the first night, Stephen introduces me to Chris. And Chris had this incredible suit on he just got. And apparently this waitress came over and she went to give me the drink, and she was looking the other way, and she didn't miss my hand. And it fell out of my hand and splashed on Chris's suit. He goes, "You mother..." He started going off me. This shirt was $4,000, but so of course Bo was breaking his chops. He goes,
"Oh, he thought you did it?"
No. Well, he was like,
"Why get mad at you?"
He was mad at the girl, and I go, I said it's my fault because I felt bad because he was really mad, right? And so, and Bo goes, "Hey, if you're stupid enough to spend $4,000 shirt, then you should have thought about it, you know, coming to a strip club."
Yeah.
So then the next day, Chris felt really bad. And he goes, "Mike, they told me that it was the girl that did it, and you were like, you covered for her." And we clicked. Because he said he liked the fact that I stuck up for her. He goes, usually people just blame it on somebody else.
I've seen him do that kind of stand up for the small guy a million times.
So
that's just
I earned his respect because I didn't.
Yeah.
I felt she was trembling. She was scared.
Yeah,
he got boisterous.
he was so angry.
Right.
Yeah.
So I calmed down the situation. I took the fall. And ever since then, I'd run into him at Whole Foods or whatever. Hey, brother.
That is a good example of the kind of person you are that one instant. It's not everything about your makeup, but in 3 seconds, because I would have seen the same thing if you were just trying to help somebody else like that. It shows your true nature.
Yeah, thanks.
And
but he was there were a lot of people that would like say things, and I said, I want to hear it because you don't really know him. If you really knew him, you wouldn't be saying anything about Chris. But sometimes, he
could hit people the wrong way. There's no doubt. First of all, he drank a lot.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of drugs.
Yeah,
a lot of drugs. But this was in the 80s, and it was cocaine, and it was everywhere in L.A. And I am a drink. I drank. And that's not a good, healthy thing, but I worked in a bar for 5 years. That's really my only real long-term job was bartending. I was a bouncer first, and then a bartender, and then I managed the club. I was managing it at the age of 21 because drinking age was 18. So I'd already been working there for 3 years by the time I was 21.
Yeah.
And I got they had a penthouse on top of the nightclub. And by the way, Hulk Hogan worked for me. He was a bartender. And his real name's Terry, but he did the wrestling later. In fact, that's why he quit. He quit because a friend was trying out for wrestling, the fake wrestling, and he wanted to see if he could do it. And he's also part of my stories that I tell people because I said, don't always give up things, because what Terry did was he tried the wrestling, and I believe he was called the Destroyer. He was a bad guy, and he didn't like it because he signed a contract to do 3 shows. He does the first show, and the second show, he got hurt on the second, so he couldn't do the third. And then he didn't do the 3 shows in 1 week like he was supposed to, and he didn't get paid for anything. And he quit wrestling. He said, I'm done with wrestling. He came back to work as a bartender. And I wish I had known he was going to be famous and I was going to be famous, or at a little fame. I should have wrote down when all this was happening because I don't know the exact years, but he comes to me one day and says, I'm going to go try it one more time. I'm going to go back and try it again. The next time he went back as Hulk Hogan, as the nice guy with the little Hulksters, the kids and stuff, and he shot straight to the top. And he told me how he got the thing with Stallone, the Rocky thing.
Yeah.
We bumped into each other because this was years later after we were done with the nightclubs, and we were both doing our own. I was just starting movies, and he was doing wrestling, WrestleMania. And we bumped into each other in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and in a restaurant, and he goes, Don, you know how I got that thing with Stallone? I said, no, how? He goes, I wrestled at Madison Square Gardens, and afterwards you go up to your hotel. But when I fight at the Caesars Palace, I'm not under my name. Because then anybody can just call you up in the middle of it. And he's not in his rooms as his names, but he says somebody got his name, calls up, and he goes, I thought it was some guy impersonating Stallone. Because he goes, I'm Sly Stallone. I'd like for you to be in my next movie, Rocky, right? And he goes, oh, yeah? How'd you get this number? He goes, blank you. And he hung up on Sylvester Stallone. So Stallone calls him again, and he starts talking. He goes, Don, I recognize the voice. Because if you pay attention, there's only one guy. You can hear Stallone, his voice. And but he hung up on him at first because he thought it was a crank call.
Yeah, wow.
But that's what he crossed over from just being famous to the little Hulksters and the championship wrestling. Rocky was the big hit.
Yeah, and he was great in that too, by the way.
Yeah, he was Thunder Lips or something like that, and he slams Rocky down. Well, you know what? Terry did have he did a couple of movies and things, but it didn't really work out for him as a long-term career. He went back to the wrestling, and but it's kind of bizarre. The highest paid wrestler at one time was Terry, and I was the highest paid kickboxer. We both worked together in the same nightclub. What are the odds of that?
When I was a young buck in my early 20s, I worked out with him and Pete Gronkowski, who was the original owner of Gold's Gym, one of the owners. And he liked to train at midnight. He liked to train really late. So Pete Gronkowski goes, hey, you want to work out with me and the Hulkster? And I said, yeah. He goes, come to the gym at 12. So I thought 12 noon. Goes, no.
Of course.
No, 12 at night.
I never heard of that.
Right.
I do work out sometimes at night because every pro fight I've ever had is in the evening. You're going to fight, so you got to get your body.
So his clock, yeah.
Sometimes, right. So when it gets close to the fight, that's not a bad thing to do.
So I get to the gym, and I had my motorcycle. I rode over to the gym, and he's standing outside with Pete Gronkowski, smoking a joint. And to me, it was like, wait a minute, you smoke, pot if you're going to relax, right? But he said they like to smoke before they train.
Well, Tyson does that now, but he's selling marijuana, so I mean,
Yeah, so,
he might be just pushing it.
So we go in the gym and we decided we were going to do chest and back. So we get on the bench, and I was a strong bencher, so was Pete, and we started putting on some heavy weight. So Hulk said, "Listen, you guys go to the other bench. I can't get hurt. I got a match next week, whatever." So he had 2.25.
Yeah.
So Pete and I are going up there. We were like doing 505 for triples and doubles, and we were freaky weight. And he was like, "I don't want part of this shit. I can't get hurt."
No, there's a chance. He could just a little torque and he'd be injured.
I remember I did my set, and Pete went to get something to drink, and all I heard was, "Psst, psst, hey kid, psst." I turned, and I guess apparently he was repping out, and he couldn't get the bar back, and it was rolling to his throat.
Ooh.
So I run over, and I pull the bar and put it up, and he goes, "Kid, don't you ever tell anything about what happened tonight." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Exactly," because he was embarrassed that he couldn't get the 2.25 off of him because he got stuck with it. But he was so high from the marijuana. It was the funniest thing.
He could overreact to anything.
Later on.
It's just like everything's funny if you've used... Listen, I smoked that stuff in the 60s when I was in high school. So I'm not saying I'm some, saint or anything. But... yeah, your perceptions of everything are a little bit different. That's for sure.
So it was so funny. So I pulled it off. And later on, he said, "No hard feelings, kid." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I don't remember anything happened." Because it was an embarrassing thing because he's a big guy, right?
Yeah. You know what? I worked with him, but we never really bonded real close. He wasn't like Chris and I. I knew him. I met him. He was a bass player in the band. And he saw the club. But this club is called the Anchor Club. And it was famous, or kind of like in our area, like Studio 54. Do you remember the New York one?
Yeah, of course.
If you go to New York, you got to go to that one. Yeah. Well, that's where the Anchor Club was. Like the Miami Dolphins would come up from Miami to go to our club.
Wow.
And the thing of it is, there's plenty of clubs in Miami.
Yeah.
For Miami Dolphin football players to come up there. And also the astronauts used to hang out there. It's Cocoa Beach. It's where those guys were,
right.
the original astronauts. And... so there may be, now I wasn't involved with any side things going on there because I worked my way up as I started off in the bottom level, bouncer, and then bartender, and then manager. And, it was a famous club in who used to go out there. It's a baseball team, and their training camp was nearby, and those guys used to come. I can't. Or New Orleans Saints, maybe, or no, that's a football team. Well, I can't remember, but pro athletes would come to hang out there because they heard about the Anchor Club.
Yeah, no, I remember in those days, especially in
I'm talking the 70s.
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s.
The disco era.
Well, I worked at Studio 54.
Oh, so you were at
And so I would see Smoking Joe Frazier coming in with a cigar.
It just happened to be the place where the celebrities would go.
Cowboy Boat Sly would coming in with his brother Frankie. It was like Switzerland.
Yeah.
Jodie Foster was there dancing with her girlfriend and having fun. Nobody cared who you were or who you're with. What you could do whatever you wanted in the club, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was safe. Nobody had cameras. There was no Me Too bullshit. And I gotta say, from being in that club, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Because you could see movie stars and everyday people. Nobody cared who you were.
Yeah.
They weren't obsessed with whatever. Everybody just Andy Warhol come in, Woody Allen come in, Elizabeth Taylor come in. Nobody cared who it was. Everybody was just there to have fun, to dance, to listen to great music. They would get high, whatever they wanted to do. And I remember there was in Studio 54, there was just the one bathroom. Men and women would go in there.
Oh, you know what? I never went to it. I never went to.
Oh, God.
When that was the place, I wasn't doing traveling then. I wasn't traveling.
Yeah.
I was just staying in Florida.
It was a whole nother level of partying, so to say, But I remember meeting Steve Rebell, who, he's one of the owners, and he ended up, anytime I'd go there, of course they were in the line, you, no. go home, But because I knew Steve, anytime I'd go with my friends, we'd go. He sent me around the back to get in the back door. But it was an incredible experience in those days in the nightclubs. Today,
when I first came out here in the 80s, is it 1985? Going to clubs was what I did. I mean, it was just like
Roxbury, right?
Look, my best friend was Chris Penn.
Yeah.
So Sean starts dating Madonna. So I'm going out with Madonna, not going out with her, but it's me, Chris, Madonna, Sean, for dinner, sitting at our table, Jack Nicholson. Cher was there one night with dinner with her 20-year-old boyfriend. But I got in immediately through Chris with the A-list people in Hollywood. I mean, I met them through many of them through Chris and Sean. The A-list guys, because I'm considered we call it independent films, but they call them B movies. But the B movie was a real thing back in the 50s, where you'd pay to see an A movie, the movie you pay for, and they throw in a free one. It's called the B movie, and so the actual B movie doesn't exist anymore. It's really I do independent films and the lower budget ones, and but for me, I tell people, look. You can do an independent, low-budget film and win an Oscar. I mean, Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto, both two guys in
Buyers
Club.
Yeah.
Well, it's a true story. That's one thing. And plus, it deals with a serious subject, AIDS. And they both won Oscars. So you can't say, hey, it's a low-budget movie, so we can just do it halfway and do a bad job. I said, no, there's no excuse to doing a bad job.
Yeah.
If Nicolas Cage has done the big-budget movies, but he wins the Oscar for that Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah,
which was,
true.
I think it was like a 28-day shoot, and I think they shot it on 16 millimeter, not even 35. But they talk about it in Hollywood as they didn't have money. They didn't need money. If they had $100 million budget, it's his performance, it's the writing, it's the movie. It's not the special effects, the CGI, the things that cost money.
You're so right. Look at all the movies that Rock's been doing. Monstrous budgets,
big budgets,
and they're losing money. When is this madness going to stop?
You know what? Those are corporations. The corporate mentality is slow to go somewhere, and they're slow to change their direction and all. So it's not just a producer saying, this is what The Rock's going to do. Some of the biggest martial art movies are the lowest budget ones. And in fact, the ones that people like, for me, have been some of the lowest budget ones. And so it's not all about the money.
Like
it's the story.
Remember the Van Damme?
Well, that's a very low budget movie.
That was really...
Yeah, I think like $3 million. Like $3 million. But you had a hero, and you had bad guys, and kind of a love interest. It had all the marketing elements that movies need to be interesting.
And I love the different styles of martial artists.
Yeah, look, Bruce Lee did it with Enter the Dragon, though. The concept, that was in the 70s. I think that was like 73. But no, it was kind of innovative. They tried to make it seem like it was a real thing too. Frank Dukes went around saying, "I'm 350-0, and I fought to the death." And
do you know Frank's doing a movie? It's in pre-production right now.
I'm sure he's going to do many more things, and he's lived a long time.
Do you get along with Frank?
No, listen, I have nothing personal against him. We see each other at events, and I say hello, but he's a complete fraud in my knowledge.
That's what I'm saying. A lot of people say he's a fraud. Is it true?
Well, because it is true that he's never fought anybody to anybody's knowledge. When he first met me, he knew I'd fought in Hong Kong. I fought 6 fights in Hong Kong. And in Bloodsport, they said the fights were in Hong Kong. So he knew I would know there's no fighting to the death in Hong Kong. And so he came up to me and he volunteered. He goes, Don, I know you fought in Hong Kong. And he said, these fights took place in the Bahamas. Not knowing I grew up in Florida, and I know every martial artist in the Bahamas. And if there's a guy throwing a sidekick, I know who. That's ridiculous. Thousands of martial artists would have had to participate for his record to be 300. It's in the 300 number and And then he thought, people saying it's too unbelievable. I better put a loss on there or whatever. So I think he might have stuck a loss on his record. But it's just ridiculous. If you ask him, every real fighter, you say, who are your top 5 opponents? And if you say Sugar Ray Leonard, Duran, Hearns, you're going to get instant respect. You don't have to have 300 wins. You just name the fighters, the best fighters you beat. and that's your claim to fame as a fighter. He can't name his. He said they're all secret. But he says in interviews that I don't want to diss it all about Frank Dukes, but he says in an interview he said Benny Urquidez and I, he's a former champion, Benny, and I tried to enter the blood sport, but we weren't good enough. And that's why.
Is he talking about Benny the Jet?
Yes, he's talking about Benny Urquidez.
An animal.
Is
he out of his mind?
He was not good enough to qualify
Benny?
For the blood sport. That's Frank Dukes.
And you?
He threw us in. Look.
That's
you know what?
crazy.
You know what? They say he may have a condition. It's the Walter Mitty syndrome. Whereas if you ask me, Don, do you know anything about flying planes? You know, and I said, yes, I flew jet fighters during Vietnam War. I show you,
right.
And then you say, well, you don't know anything about boating or anything? So yes, I was a captain in the Coast Guard for 25 years, and I had all these ships. And in other words, whatever the way the conversation go, whatever he needs to be an expert at, he is an expert. Well, he says he worked covertly for the CIA. He wrote a book about it called The Secret Man. It's his secret. It's all his missions. His missions are so secret, he writes a book about them.
Does he own the rights for Bloodsport?
It's his concept. He wrote the story. And then I believe somebody else wrote the actual screenplay. But he came up with the idea that it's supposedly his true story. So you got if it's real and he's alive, you should tell your story, right? And then get a screenwriter and he'll turn it into a movie. It's crazy. It's crazy that 30 years later we're still talking about him.
Yeah, no, I was at a memorial for a friend of mine that passed away, and this gentleman I know came up to me and said, "Hey, you know, Frank Dukes wants to do this movie. I forget what they're going to call it. I don't know if it's not like Bloodsport, but he said we're going to do this movie." And I said, "Well, you know the history of this guy. He's crazy."
Well, a lot of people are saying now it's mental illness where you're saying so many crazy things.
I've just heard some credible stories where it almost went to fist fights and stuff, and I don't have patience for that kind of crazy stuff.
Well, he'll never get to fist fights. He said he offered he would fight me. People said, well, if you're this great fighter, would you ever do an exhibition match with Don Wilson, just get in the ring and move around? And he goes, yes. He says, I'll do it blindfolded. Okay. He's going to wear a blind. And I wrote him back. I said, Frank, thank you very much for accepting and wearing the blindfold. And I said, I will bring the blindfold. That way everybody will know it's not a fake blindfold. But listen, even if he pokes holes in it, he's not a fighter. You're only as good as let's say your top 5 opponents.
Yeah.
And he can't name them. They're all secret.
Well,
so I don't believe he's real.
Anybody that Googles your name, they will see some of those incredible knockouts you did.
Well, first of all, I fought when I was in my prime, the top fighters that lived then, from middleweight to cruiserweight. Those are the guys I fought. I beat he was a kickboxer. He won the UFC, Murray Smith. He was a cruiserweight when I fought him. We fought in Tokyo, Japan. I beat him. I beat the IBF cruiserweight boxing champion. He fought me in kickboxing, and I beat him. He was undefeated in kickboxing, by the way. He had like 30 wins. He was a boxing champion. And I beat him and won. Dennis Alexio, he was undefeated.
Dennis,
fought me. And he ended up getting beat by a guy in Australia, though. He
was a trainer of goals. What a badass he was,
though. He loses by leg kicks, though. That's how I beat him. He didn't train. And so here's what happens. We fought in Miami, and Chuck Norris was at the fight. And after the fight, Chuck and I are in the lounge. And Alexio, they carry him in, a guy under his arm, and he sits down. And I said, you know, Dennis, I said, you did a great job. I said, it was a good fight. I said, it was on NBC Sports World. I said, I'm willing to give you a rematch before the end of the year. And he goes, blank kickboxing. He goes, I'm going to become a boxer. I'm going for boxing. So I not only make him leave the sport of kickboxing, but he's going to go where you can't throw a kick. So he does a little boxing, and I think he found out he's not going to be a champion. So he goes back to kickboxing, but he goes to kickboxing that does not allow you to kick the legs. And he fights there for several years, becomes undefeated, wins a championship, and then he fights a guy in Australia, and he thinks he can fight with leg kicks. So he goes over there, and it's illegal, and he gets his leg broke in like second or third, early in the fight.
Wow.
Yeah, the guy kicks it because he blocked it wrong. There's a way to block it. There's a way to do everything, right, in sports. And once you learn it, you can do it. When you lift your leg up, if your shin is straight up and down and the guy hits it sideways, right, that's how it cracks. You have to have your shin slanted like this, so when he hits you, it hurts.
Oh,
you
so,
still get...
Yeah.
But but he didn't do it. He just lifted it up and the guy hit it and broke his leg.
Wow.
Yeah, so Dennis, and he ended up... I think he was in jail for quite a while. He promoted his own fights, and he didn't give the IRS their money.
Yeah.
The IRS, when you're selling out auditoriums, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny, when he got out of jail, he said all he did was become a better fighter. He said, I fought every day.
Well, that's not real fights, though. Look, people, they come to me because here's how their thinking is misfired, is wrong. If you are a guy who once in a while, you pick up a tennis racket, you play tennis once in a while, not all the time, but once in a while, maybe once or twice a week, you pick up a tennis racket. Are you going to beat Jimmy Connors, Briong Board, guys who all they do at the highest level is play tennis all day long? It's a street fighter is a guy who once in a while gets into a fight.
Yeah.
But a professional fighter is a guy who does it every single day. I fought for 28 years. Now, I'm in the Guinness Book of World Records, not for that. I'm in for winning 11 world titles. And people said, was that a goal? I said, no. If I had ever told anybody that my goal is to win 11 world titles, they'd say, you're out of your mind. You'd be lucky to win one. That's an accomplishment, to win one title.
That's amazing,
But
yeah.
In kickboxing, we have many different weight divisions, right? Like boxing. And we have different rules. We have 3 different sets of rules. So there are 3 different forms of kickboxing. And I won all of them. The Thai boxing, Japanese kickboxing, and American for what they call full contact. It's only kicking above the waist. And if they'd had MMA, the best sport I ever did, the best sport I was built for, let's say I did naturally, is wrestling. The reason for that is this. I went to the Coast Guard, I told you. When I left the Coast Guard, I had no money. So I go up to the junior college, and I said, what sports do you have here? Because I had no money to pay for school. I wanted to go to school, get my education. They go, we got basketball, but the team's already picked. What is your wrestling background? We got a wrestling team. And I said, well, I've never even watched a wrestling match, but I want to try out. And they go, the athletic director says, son, these are state national champions. You cannot start a sport at the collegiate level. There's no sport. The first day you've touched a basketball. First time it dribbled is you're trying out for a college basketball team. But I'd never wrestled before, but I was an athlete. Like I said, I was the MVP of my high school football and basketball team. So I was strong, I was in shape. So the guy gets me this 190-pound wrestler, and he says, just work with him, let me watch you. And see. And I rolled it on the mat, and I'm not going to say, I didn't even know what the rules were. I had to ask him, what am I trying to do? And you're trying to pin the guy. But college wrestling is really strict. You can't go against the joints. You can't cause any pain to the guy or nothing. It's not like submission, where you can get him in an arm bar, and you can get him in a chokehold. Collegiate wrestling is not like that. But the coach could see I was an athlete, so he said, "I'm going to give you 2 weeks." And he said, "At the end of 2 weeks, I'll make a decision. You either get a full scholarship or you're not going to go to school at this university." And so I get the scholarship. In my second year, I took 4th in the state of Florida at 177. And the guy that beat me had gone to the Nationals the year before. And so he was the best wrestler at 177. And he did beat me. I got to admit, no one pinned me, but
he beat you on points.
He beat me on points. And he was the state champion in wrestling the year before. So now I'm going to a junior college, so it's only 2 years. He was a senior. He graduated that year. That was his last year. But he was the best wrestler for 2 straight years in a row. I'm not going to beat that guy.
But
it was probably easy for him.
But
the
it was
thing is,
good for you to train someone
grappling
against someone
I'm
strong.
a natural grappler.
Yeah.
So here's what happens. The guy calls me up on the phone. People get my number. He says, Ms. Wilson, we're starting a new show, and we want you to be the announcer. It's a martial art fight. And I said, well, what kind of fights are they? And it says, kickboxing? I'm thinking it's kickboxing. He goes, no, it's not kickboxing. It's going to be called the UFC, and there's going to be no rules. I said, wait a minute. What do you mean there's no rules? There's no weight divisions? He goes, yes, there's no weight divisions, which is that's crazy in itself. And I go, and no gloves, no nothing. He says, no safety gear whatsoever, no safety gear. Only no eye gouging and biting.
I remember
And I said,
that.
you can hit the groin. He said, you
Yep,
can hit
yeah,
the groin.
I
You can
remember
knee
that.
it. I said, you can headbutt. He said, you can headbutt all day long. Now, actually, as a football player, all the paint was off the front of my helmet because I used my head as a weapon in football. And that's how I'd take guys out of the games. But when he told me that, I said, I'm not announcing that. Because in my mind, he said, we're going to get 8 guys who are going to all fight. There's going to be one winner. No weight division and all that. I'm thinking somebody's going to die in this.
Wasn't it when they had the cage?
That's where they first had the cage.
Right.
They still got a cage, but they the octagon or whatever. And so the first one happens. I don't watch it. Second one happens. I don't watch it. And they call me up on the third one, Mr. Wilson, we want you to announce it. Come and watch. Be our guest. Sit ringside and decide for yourself. And I thought, you know what? I didn't even watch the other ones. There's no YouTube then or anything. I watch things on YouTube. But so I went to the third one. Now, as I recall, the celebrity section, I'm relying on memory now. Gary Busey was one of the celebrities.
Oh, God.
John Milius. I think Frank Stallone.
Frankie's always there.
I think Frank might have been
Chuck
there.
Zito was there. Whoops.
He might have been. This is the third one now.
Yeah.
And this is the one where Hoist Gracie did not win. He submitted a guy named Chemo, but he was so tired when he was in the ring, he looked across the ring and there was a Canadian guy looking in shape, like he was going to just throw bombs. And Hoist looked at his brothers. I don't know what they said. They were not even speaking English, but I'm sitting at the ringside. I can't really hear the corner, but he's shaking his head like that. So I know what that means. He doesn't want to fight the guy. And literally, they throw a towel on him and they walk him out the thing. He does not fight. So Hoist did not win the third one. I don't know who ended up being the winner, but it wasn't him. And I thought to myself, he's about my size, 170. I'll come out of retirement. Because I watched Hoist. And I said, he won't beat me grappling. I said, but of course I would keep it on the feet. It'd be stupid to fight him at his game.
Yeah, no.
I would
Did you ever fight him?
Well, here's what happens. Bob Meyerowitz was running it. That was the guy running the TV at the time. He goes, Don, how much do you want to fight Hoist? And I said, yeah, because I don't want to enter the tournament. Just make a fight between me and Hoist. We call it a super fight, whatever you want. I said, I'll fight him for 20% of whatever comes in. Now, at the time, they were getting $4 million a show. So 20% is $800,000.
Not bad.
Now, if Hoist beat, there is a tragic thing in boxing, in kickboxing. It's brain damage. Hoist's not going to punch or kick me in the head. He's just going to submit. He's going to get my wrist, and I'm going to have to go like that. And then I got my $800,000. So to me, it was just no lose situation.
Right.
And then when I say, yeah, of course you beat me in submission because I never did it before. But I could catch him. If you remember, he fought with his chin out and he would lean back and he just looked like just an open target to me as a striker.
Right.
I look at him and even as a wrestler, the way he shoots, his brother was the matchmaker. So meaning his brother picked all his opponents. All those other 7 people, it was his brother. I can't remember what his name, not Jorge and Gracie, maybe it was Jorge, but it was one of the Gracie brothers. And they picked guys who didn't understand grappling. When Hoist quit, it was because Shamrock got in. They found out, there's a thing called shoot fighting where they wrestle and they do some striking. And when he fought Hoist to a draw, then the Hoist whole thing was we were going to try to show that our martial arts is superior to everybody. Having draws means we're not superior. So it made him look bad. He pulled out. He didn't fight then. He didn't fight until Dana White tried everything he could to make it work, and it was not making a profit. And his best wrestler was Matt Hughes.
Oh, he was great.
He was a wrestler too, grappler.
Yeah.
And he was beating everybody. And then he said he gave Hoist enough money to come out of retirement to fight him. And he got knocked right out.
Wow.
Matt passed the guard.
Yeah.
He started as a wrestler, by the way. Matt was a wrestler. And he just got in ground and pounded Hoist. But I look at Matt, and I said, you know what? He's got no reach, so he's not going to be able to touch me with a punch or a kick. And I said, I will not miss him I'll hit him with every punch I throw, every elbow, every knee, everything will land on him. And I said, he will not. I deserve to be choked out if he can.
Did you fight Matt?
Here they make an offer to me. I'm in Vegas for something else. And Dana can't, this goes out to Dana White. You can't deny it because it's true. And I'll give you the numbers. I heard through the grapevine, I don't have the ability to open up somebody's bank account and see how much money they got paid, but they were paying their champions at that time $100,000 a fight. So the offer I got, not out of the words coming out of Dana's mouth, it was a matchmaker. got a middleman. He comes, Mr. Wilson, we're offering you, this is a fight offer from Dana White to fight Matt Hughes, $75,000. Because I know what they're thinking. Dana said, look, offer him 75, I'll go up to 100. It was something like that. And I said, now I'm thinking this is what I'm thinking, 75,000 for a guy who can't punch or kick. He can't punch or kick me for sure. If he tries, I'll decapitate him. And I said, but he might get me on the ground and I might have to be submitted. But 75 grand, I was thinking, I stuck my hand out, done. He was like shocked. He goes, have you seen Matt Hughes fight? I said, yeah, I saw him fight. I said, he's a good fighter. It's going to be a good fight. I said, I appreciate the opportunity. And I shook his hand. So I get excited. I've been retired for 10 years. So I call my agent. I got an agent. I said, you're going to get something that you've never seen before. He goes, what's that? I said, it's a fight offer from Dana White. I said, it's going to be for $75,000. I said, just sign it and send it back to him. Huh. And so I get back to LA and my agent says, hey, this is the days of the fax machines. This is before email. It came with fax, the contract. It wasn't $75,000. And I wish I could remember the exact amount, but the number was so bizarre. I don't remember. I think it was like $47,500. He should have done something like, he should have added in 2 cents just to show me that it was just an insult.
Oh, God.
Dana White has a guy shake on it, and then I told my agent, call him up and tell him I agreed to $75,000. Not that I was doing it for the money, because in my mind, and I'll let it out. Dana tries to get you to sign a contract to where you could only fight for the UFC. If you fight for them and they put you on, they make you famous, you can't go and fight for these Japanese promoters and the
other federations. Yeah.
Well, I would never sign that. So, and he would think, it's okay. He's going to get killed by Matt Hughes. Matt's going to choke him out, slam him, body slam him. And Don Wilson's not going to be able to go with Matt. And so then I could do whatever I want. I'm going to be a free agent. The big money would come after the Matt Hughes fight, because I'd promote it myself. Look at what Mayweather promoted his own fight. I had dinner with Mayweather right after that. Not right after, but soon after he fought Conor McGregor. We were as odd things happen. There's a fight fan in what was his name's Ramzan, Chechnya. He's having a birthday party. He's a fight fan, so he invites me and Mayweather to come to his birthday party. So we go. And while I'm sitting there with Mayweather, he goes, hey, Don, I paid Conor $100 million to fight me. And I'm thinking, and my sick mind, I'm thinking, is that a fight offer? Because the Dragon comes for a lot less than $100 million. He did. He paid Conor McGregor $100 million to fight him.
Holy shit!
Now he paid himself $200 million.
Oh well.
He got that fight with Conor McGregor was $300 million gross. Google it.
Oh my God.
Google it. He promoted it. He put $200 million in his pocket, and he carried McGregor the whole fight until the 10th round, and then he finally they stopped the fight, I think, because Conor was stumbling around so much.
Yeah, it was pretty pathetic at the end.
Well, no, he gave him a better fight than he thought in the first 5 rounds.
Yeah.
But Mayweather, if you watch that fight, he was carrying Conor. Conor started off as an amateur boxer. That's his background. He was an amateur boxer in Ireland. Not a great one either, not Olympic champion or anything, but just a guy who did a few amateur fights.
Yeah.
And then he learned submission, but he throws a straight left. And he catches guys. He's trained now. Now he's trained in boxing and submission and everything. But I mean, there's no way he could go. If Mayweather wanted to knock him out the first round, he would have gone out. But Mayweather's putting on a show. He's the promoter. So he carries him 5 rounds. And then in the later rounds, when Mayweather made the decision to knock him out, he stunned Conor so much. Conor did something in martial arts we call drunken monkey. He just starts stumbling. He didn't do it on purpose. He was just so dazed. Now, how can me, as a fighter, or Mayweather, predict where he's going if he doesn't even know? He's stumbling around the ring. So it looked embarrassing that Mayweather's trying to knock him out, but it's not happening. So the referee just jumped in and stopped the fight. Because Conor you're supposed to be able to, the rules state of Athletic Commission, you have to be intelligently defending yourself. You can't be just this just cover.
And then they're going to stop it. Yeah,
right. That's you're not intelligently. You're just desperately. It's like a turtle. You pull yourself into a shell like this, but Conor didn't even do that. His head was he was just stumbling. Watch that last round.
He looked out of it, man.
He was out of it, and he would have only gotten hurt worse if the referee didn't stop it.
So I got to ask you something.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new show called Cobra Kai?
You know what? I watched the very first episode. I believe before it actually even got picked up. I watched one of the early ones, and it was great. I loved it. I never watched another episode. I hate to say it's not because I'm not a fan, or I watch no TV. I don't even understand where people have time to watch TV. I watch news, and because of Trump, I've had to watch political stuff on the news.
Yeah,
you know the news. But I watch news to be aware of what's happening in the world, and but I don't watch shows. My wife worked on Friends. She's a makeup artist. That was the number one show after the end of 10 years, she asked me, she goes, "Hey, Don, you know, there's going to be a big rap party. You want to go?" Because she does TV. And I never want to go. But this time I thought, well, it's going to be probably a big party. You know, it's a 10-year rap party. So I said, yeah. And I've heard of Friends. I know it was a big hit. And I go there, and when they see me, the guys on Friends go, "Oh, the Dragon Wilson, I'm a big fan." They all run up. And my wife never knew that they even knew my name but here's why. Those guys were all 20-somethings. When they were teenagers, my movies were in all video stores. They were, and their mom was giving them $2 to go rent the video stores. And that's why the Friends guys, they were off. My wife didn't know. They were going, "Oh, I'm a big fan of your movies." Wow. But it was just funny. But anyway, I didn't even watch Friends. And my wife was working on, she's a makeup artist. So she actually did the guest stars, which were the biggest guest stars in
they had the biggest stars.
Yeah. I mean, they have, like, Brad Pitt was one of the guest stars.
George Clooney, everybody.
Sean Penn was one. Yeah. Everybody wanted to be a guest star because he's getting 20 million viewers. Come on. Movies are lucky to get 20 million viewers.
Well, you know, the Kevin Bright, who wrote, credited, and directed it, was my client.
Oh.
So I knew everything about the show. And then when he had that
the rap party was great, by the way.
Oh, listen, I couldn't make it to the rap party. But I heard about the rap party. Okay,
you know me. Well, you don't know me, but I grew up poor. So when they had the buffet, when they had lobster, and I'm saying just piles of lobster, I'm bypassing the potatoes. I don't need a roll. I don't need any salad, lettuce. I'm piling up the lobster on my plate. Now, also they had these ice sculptures everywhere. Alcohol drinks coming out of them. One of them might be vodka tonic. One of them might be rum and coke. So I'm drinking on an empty stomach because I'm thinking, if I'm going to go to this rap party, I'm probably going to be bored and be by myself. I'm not going to know, because TV guys are not the same as movie guys. It's a whole different group of actors and directors and writers and stuff. So I'm not going to know anybody, but I'm going to get some food. So I made sure I was hungry. But I started drinking empty stomach these ice sculpture drinks. So, man, you get this much vodka in an empty stomach. And anyway, I'm not 100%. I was about to turn into the dragon, but so I go to the thing, and they had security. That probably was the most secure place in the world at that time, because every celebrity that ever existed was there. But the guards, security guys, I guess they were told, you have to be they were standing they were up against the wall. They were standing like this, all up against the wall. So behind this big buffet were piles of, if I took a shovel, I couldn't have got more lobster piled on there. and I go there, and I'm taking one, and I go back for another one. And then I notice one of the security guards is looking at me. And I'm saying, I can't, am I taking too much? Are we only allowed one plate of this stuff? Okay. Or what? I'm thinking, all of a sudden he comes off that wall. And they're told, I'm sure their boss said, you don't come off that wall unless something is happening. Sure. You can't just walk and wander around with the stars. You stay there, stay out of their way. And I'm thinking, now I know it wasn't my imagination. I'm getting thrown out of my wife's rap party, the 10-year rap party of Friends.
For eating too much lobster.
For eating too much lobster. That's what I'm thinking. And he comes over there and goes, Mr. Wilson, I'm sorry to disturb you, but he goes, I'm one of Chris Casamassa. Now, Chris Casamassa is a martial artist and an actor. I'm one of his students, and I just had to introduce. I just had to meet you. Just had to come over here and say hi to you, Mr. Wilson. And he had to break protocol just to come over. But Then later, when I sobered up, and I started thinking, wait a minute, there's no rule at the Friends wrap party that you can't take 2 plates of lobster. They're not going to throw me out.
That's how Kevin is such a generous guy. He wouldn't care. He wouldn't care how much lobster.
Look, gosh, what was the entertainment was for one of them. I mean, not the whole thing, but she's a famous singer. But I mean, it was the place to be. Tom Purcell, I did see him there. Brad Pitt, I saw him. He was dating Jennifer Aniston at the time. It was the big party, and at the big party, I thought I got thrown out for eating too much lobster.
That's
the security came off the wall at me. Oh, man.
Well, Don, I got to wrap it up. We got another guest.
Oh, great.
And his name is Dallas Young from Cobra Kai. And I want you to meet him because he is an incredible human being,
you know what?
martial artist.
When I know people, I will watch. I didn't even watch the episode of Walker I was on. Chuck would shoot me.
It actually was great, by the way.
Well, the Legends episode, they brought us all on. All champions were on. But Chuck, the way he did, he called me up. He goes, Don, I'm wrapping up Walker, but I want you to be in it before I finish this thing off. And I go, oh, great, Chuck. Send me a script, and I'll do the best I can. I'm trying to tell him I'll do the character as best, because I'm for sure thinking he's going to make me a bad guy, and I'm going to get my beat up. And he starts laughing. He goes, Don, you're playing Drown the Dragon Wilson. When you get here, I'll just tell you what to say. He goes, so, yeah. You know, Actually, I joke. I said, every time I get asked to do TV, it's always to play myself. Chuck did it, and then I did an episode of Moesha. It's an all-black show,
right?
And for young, it's had a woman named Brandy. She was a singer, and she was the star of it. And they asked me to play myself on it, but I said they obviously don't respect me as an actor because I said, look, you're not going to have to just say the right words because you're going to play Don Wilson. You play it just like Don Wilson.
Right. Well, thank you, Don, for coming on, man.
I
love all your stories.
Oh, right. I had a great time.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you for watching. And if you have someone you care about, share this episode because listening to Don's stories and how he became who he is today, one of the most badass men on this planet and successful and a good human being, they'll learn a lot from this. And please remember, subscribe. We need your support. Thanks for watching.